All right, guys, I'm just getting things set up. Um, Again, I got a new tequila. I'll be testing out today. La Adelita's tequila. I think I pronounced it right. So, let's wait till a few people join, and then we'll get started. So, just trying to get everything set up as well. Let's see. Dude, why does it do this crap? I'm still trying to figure this out, man. It doesn't make any sense. Okay. All right, guys. So just trying to get things set up. Man, it just took me a little bit more longer. I'm trying to send a tweet out. I don't know why on my YouTube studio. So I get everything set up like when I get ready to stream, and I'm able to make sure that my title on my stream is set, the image, even the description of my stream. So I kind of went through that process, set it up, and then once I go live, it seems like what it's doing, it creates another. It's almost like one live stream is waiting to go live. So it says upcoming, and then when I do go live, it creates this other not a video, but like this. I don't know what you want to call it, right? Like another live stream you want to call it, right? One is upcoming and the one is actually live. But the one that's live doesn't have nothing set. It doesn't have a thumbnail. Description is something generic. So like, what the hell, man? I don't get it. I don't know why it does that. Maybe it's something the way I'm doing it on my side. So I am using Restream to be able to stream on multiple channels, platforms like Twitch and YouTube. So I don't know if there's something with that's causing that. I need to play around with it, try to figure that out. But either way, trying to make sure my cameras. I feel like it's a little blurry for some reason. Let me see if I can fix it real quick. So it's cool. I have this app ultimately connects to my camera. It lets me access all the features of my camera, everything that the camera offers, which is pretty cool. I've never seen one to that level, anyways. So that's pretty cool. Oops. That actually looks pretty good. Okay, I'll stick with that. That looks good. All right, guys. Again, today, Friday. Hopefully, y'all having a good day. And it's drinking with Lou. I need to figure out what I'm going to do next week. Next week, my wife, my sister, and my daughter, they're all going to be going on, I think on Friday, Disney on Ice. Well, I'm going to be going with my brother-in-law, and I believe my dad's going too. We're going to go to Top Golf, but we're actually going in the evening. I think we reserved the bay for like 7:30. Realistically, we're probably going to be there to about 10, to be honest with you. Somewhere within that time frame. Which means normally my live stream's at 9. I'm thinking of doing. I don't want to miss a day. I'm actually thinking of doing it, but doing it as Top Golf. It may not be 9 to 11 like normal, but even if it's like 9 to at least 10, 9 to 10:30, be live. Have some. Again, we're gonna be having some drinks in Top Golf, play some golf. You can watch us play golf. Be able to talk. Won't be able to solve any programming questions, but at least we could talk, right? We could still be able to talk tech related stuff. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm trying to do something like that. I never done a live stream remotely or like a live stream on my device. So that's why I'm still thinking of best way to do that, right? I'm not sure what the answer is to that right now. So I'm gonna try to figure something out. I know if I charge my phone, have it fully charged. I believe they have Wi-Fi there that's pretty decent. So if I connect to that, I think I should be good. We'll see though. We'll see what happens. In that case. Let's see. So I'm gonna give it a few more minutes, and then we'll talk about the drink. How do I pronounce this? Adelera's Tequila. I don't think I'm pronouncing it right. La Adelera Tequila. So this is the tequila that I'm gonna be tasting today. It looks blurry. There we go. It looks more focused in here. Okay, so we'll be tasting that in a few. I heard some good things about this tequila, but we'll see, man. It's always kind of hard to tell sometimes how good it is or not. One thing that's kind of interesting, this one seems to be very old-fashioned on how they make this tequila. So that's I actually like those kind of tequilas. That's what I'm interested in as well. Not finding tequilas like your mainstream tequila like Patron, for example, or even like 1800. A lot of these guys, they're very they're mass produced, so of course the process is for sure not the old-fashioned process the way they make it. It's more expedited. They add either flavoring or even like some of the vanilla flavors or lime touches and stuff like that may not be, it's more like them adding it to the tequila. And again, it may be smooth, but it's not, what's the right word? They're adding additives to it instead of having those natural flavors in it type deal. So that's kind of what I've been, just kind of getting into those tequilas, trying to find tequila that are more, made naturally, I guess, through the old school process and have those good flavors in it. So, that's why lately I've been buying a lot of tequilas. I like bourbons too. Eagle Rare is the one. It's a bourbon. It's good, dude. I actually like it a lot. They have it at the liquor store that I go to. But normal price, I believe it's like should be like 39, like $40, right? Let's say like $40. Man, they're selling over there for $80, like double the price. That's crazy. I like it, but I don't like it that much. I'm not gonna be spending double for that bottle. So I need to wait until they go down. And they got a big shipment in, man. They had like a big old pallet of it, and I don't know, man. That seems just way too much. Unless the price has went up, but it seems way, way too much. Hopefully all of y'all doing good, man, on this Friday. I'm enjoying my day. Actually had a busy day, man. It was supposed to be a calm day today. The only thing I had on my schedule earlier today was I was meeting with a client, and what else was I gonna do? Had a meeting with one of my employees. So that's the only thing I had: meeting with a client, meeting with one of my employees, and I was gonna work on doing some testing for the YouTube video. Um, I'm working on on a YouTube video, but I'm doing some testing on it first, which is being able to download files from Sharepoint and upload those files to an AWS S3 bucket. So we kind of talked about it last week. So I started doing some testing over that, and that's kind of what I was going to do today. I had my 2 meetings, but man, everything got kind of out of whack. There's some issues that came up. I had like everybody calling me left and right. I was getting email left and right. It's one of those days where it seems like everybody just reaches out to you. Even clients that don't even really call me on a regular basis, they were emailing me, asking questions about like, hey, can feedback on this? Can you help me out with this? It was just one of those days, man. It was just one of those days, and it happens every once in a while. But I got all the issues done. But of course, it took away time from doing some of the testing that I was trying to do related to the S3, bucket project, which is again being able to take files from a SharePoint, which I have a video over that already, to be able to download files from SharePoint, and then ultimately uploading these files to an S3 bucket. I think where I stopped at was I was going to create the a profile. I don't think I did. I was supposed to create a profile, an account in AWS, and then ultimately that account it was going to use for API purposes. So I made it. I could get myself that API secret key, and then that's what I'm gonna use ultimately for my integration, right, to kind of connect. Which in my case, I'm using Python, and I'll be using the AWS API, which is what is it called? Let's see. So you're not familiar. This is pretty much the SDK for Python, right, to utilize. And I'll share my screen. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. So when it comes to there's a few ways to kind of communicate with AWS, right? Like, I'll kind of give you, for example, you could use in this case the SDK, or you could use the command line interface. So on one of my servers that I have on AWS, we have processes that we run that are taking, let's say for example, files, CSV files, and then we're uploading it to our S3 bucket, right? And for those processes, I'm using the command line interface, where I'm able to run commands and ultimately say, all right, just look into this folder, and then of course I point to a bucket, and then it literally just moves the files over. It's very easy. I mean, real easy. Because again, it's literally a one-line command. All you have to do is and it has arguments right in the command, which would be, for example, just kind of show you, right? I don't know if I have it set up, but just kind of show you an example. It would be something like AWS. What is it? S3. So it depends on what action you're going to take. In my case, I'm dealing with S3. If you're dealing with EC2, it will be EC2. If you're dealing with what else do I do? A glue. It will be AWS. I believe it's glue. And then of course it takes parameters on what you want to do. In my case, a lot of the stuff that I do that relates to S3, it will be like S3. Then you got to determine what you're going to do. Are you going to remove files? Are you going to, I don't know, let's say upload files? So if we were to take a look at that guy, let's look at the get started. The services S3 high level commands, and it's going to be move objects, right? So here's a good example. So MV would be because we're moving files, and it's literally this. I mean, this straightforward, man. It will be move. You got to specify the source. So let's say if you're moving something from a local host, it would be your C drive, and let's say it's your documents, and then let's say you have another file that's called project files, right? It will be something like that. Then of course you would have to specify, in this case, your bucket, which would be, let me make sure that I got it. Yeah, it is /. I don't know why, but yeah, it'll be S3 / and whatever your bucket is, right? So if I have a starting point, my bucket is called let me call it, just project 1. Then inside that bucket I have a folder, and let's say I have a what's called staging folder. That's pretty much what I would do here. And then of course you can specify arguments where, let's say if you're trying to do some sort of iteration, because right now if I were to run this, it wouldn't move anything from this folder because it wants me to specify a file. Like this would be if I want to move one file. So let's say if I have a file name .text, if I run this, then this would ultimately move one file. But if I want to move all the files, for example, that belong to S3 from a folder to one S3 bucket, for like move all files in folder, then ultimately I would do kind of the same thing, but this will stay blank. And then what I would end up doing is let's see, a recursion. So this is what I would end up adding at the end. And what this means is now it's pretty much, think of it as it's iterating over your folder, right? So it's pretty much going to take all the files in this folder and it's going to end up moving it to this S3 bucket. And again, this is so easy when you think about it, especially when you're dealing with, like I deal with, a lot of my stuff is automated. So it's like very repetitive. We got files being dumped into this folder, but now we want to move these files over. So I'm gonna give you a good example, like the way I use it. I have a server that has that's getting all of these files. These files could be coming from, for example, another system. The other system is I'm getting them through an API. And ultimately, those files get created, and they're XML files. Are they XML files? They are XML files, and they're being saved into one folder, right? I just think of it as being saved into this project folders. What I do though, I have another server. This other server is going to take that XML, and it's ultimately going to convert it to a PDF. So by that, you do need some kind of software or a script or some sort, but I'm using the software where I'm able to map the data in XML to a format like a PDF template type format where, you have your header, you have all this details, right? Where it looks pretty, right? But it ultimately takes that data and it generates a PDF. But that service that does that, because it's very resource intense, I have another server, and that's all that server does. It literally just runs what I want to call runs the conversion process, which converts an XML file to a PDF. That's all it does, and it does hundreds to even a few thousand a day, every day. That's all that server does. So in order to get files moved around, that's where I'm using an S3 bucket. I have server A, and I'm taking the data from server A, and I'm uploading it to an S3 bucket. And then I'm in the server B, I'm pulling those XMLs down, and then ultimately it runs through the process to generate PDFs. And then what happens is once a PDF is generated, both the XML and the PDF get sent back to an S3 bucket. One bucket is for PDF, and another, well, let me rephrase it. It's all one bucket, but inside that bucket I have two folders. One folder is for, PDF, and the other folder is for XML. And as files get sent back up, then server A will run a command. Again, what I'm doing here, but in this case, it will be the opposite. Instead of what this is doing is to move all files from folder to S3. Well, you could do the opposite as well. If I'm trying to move all files from S3 to folder, it'll be pretty much the opposite, right? Same concept, but it'll be in reverse, where I will specify my S3 bucket first, and then of course my destination and where it's going, my local machine. Then ultimately what this will do will take all the files from that folder, download it. And again, it's removing it, so that folder becomes empty, the S3 bucket becomes empty. Then I'm saving it to whatever project. Let's say if I call it project PDF files, right, or something like that. It'll just save all of that in there. So I'm a big fan of the AWS command line interface because it makes things real easy when you're dealing with that kind of stuff. You can do the same thing using the SDK, the AWS SDK for Python, and it will do the same thing. But in my mind, though, there is more setup involved if you do it that way with Python, because A, you gotta have Python installed. B, you gotta have that package installed, so you gotta set up a virtual environment. Then on top of that, you just have to do all these other things, right? You gotta, you're not gonna have a one-liner script to do it. You're gonna have to have, a few lines of code. One to read a list, to identify all the files that you have in a folder. Then from there, being able to kind of run like a command that we're doing here, but in the package. So I mean, you're probably dealing with at least like 20 lines of code or whatever, and then a few things to set up. Where with this, the setup is easy. You install it. When you install it and you're running in the command line, you will need to specify your API key, the region, like upfront once. And once you specify it once, it's saved as and there's a configuration file where all that information is saved. So as long as you run AWS, that's what activates in the terminal that you want to run. Use that the command line to do whatever it is you're trying to do. It comes in very handy, dude. So that's why I use it a lot. We use it a lot in my business, where we're moving files around from one server to another server. That's what we're doing. We move it from a server to S3 and S3 to another server. Once that server is done, and move it back to S3. Sometimes we move files to an S3 bucket because we're going to run a process through AWS Glue to, again, an ETL process to extract the data, do whatever it needs to do. Then ultimately it will get loaded into, let's say, a database or data warehouse or whatever. And then on top of that, with the command line interface, you could, when you create an AWS Glue job, you could use this to execute that job. To run that job. It will be something like AWS Glue, and then it will be something like what job name. Then ultimately you specify the job name, whatever that job name is, right? If it's, process files, or I don't know, whatever it is that you call that AWS Glue job, that's what you would provide. And then ultimately literally just runs that, and it knows, boom, go ahead and go execute that job. Now the only thing to keep in mind, though, as you configure and set your job to do certain things, it only runs per specific regions. So if you're building, let's say like I use the Oregon region. So a lot of my stuff is all there, a lot of my services. But if you have resources like, okay, well, I created an AWS glue job that runs in the East region and one, another one on the West region and just these different areas. It's not going to be able to access that other region because yeah, I believe you're going to have to probably specify it in not in your configuration file. I think there's a way to specify it within your command to let them know what region you're trying to run. I believe so. I could be wrong, but I believe you would have to do something like that. I know by default when you set your credentials, um, let's see if there's an example. There you go. Configuration, basic configuration. See how there? I want to see if it shows. There it goes. This is how it looks, right? So ultimately, you specify the region, and then you got to specify your secret keys and your access key ID. But if you're dealing with multiple regions, this it is going to be an issue. Um, I really haven't had to deal with that, but again, that's more so because all of my stuff happens to be in one region, so it just kind of works out. So, but I think there's ways to import in configuration, and that's something that I believe it would have to be I think that's the way I would probably do it right here. This is a good example. You would need to have different profiles. So it's almost like when you run your command, like the S3, I believe you would have to specify which profile to use. So what that means is you're gonna have to have a profile for the East region, another profile for the West region, and then you would have to run the command to specify that profile, and then run the command lines to do what it needs to do for it to point to the right place. So it would have to be something like that, anyways. All right, guys. So I'm gonna open up this bottle. La Adenta. Adeleta tequila. I know I'm not pronouncing it right. I know I'm not, but that's fine. We're gonna give this a try. Let's see how good it tastes. So price tag on this was it 39? I believe 39 is that what I want to call premium tequilas. Any tequila that's considered a premium tequila normally falls within that range, that $39 and above range. Um, Now that being said, it doesn't mean that just because it's a premium tequila that it's going to be a good tequila, or that a tequila that costs $25 is not going to be a good tequila, because there are some tequila that are good out there. I have a few bottles over there. What is it called? El Palo. I think that's what it's called. That is not a premium tequila, but that tequila is good. It really is, man. It's a good tequila. So let's give this a taste. I got my cowboy cup, of course. I'm born and raised from a DFW area. I've been a cowboy fan all my life, and I've been through a lot of good and bad, mainly bad seasons. The good times was, of course, when I was younger, when they were winning. I still remember those days, man, when they won the Super Bowl. There was we had so where I lived at, we have this road called Main Street, and that street takes you pretty much from downtown, like the north side of where I live at, which is Fort Worth. I live in the Fort Worth area, but that Main Street area, if you drive, it takes you straight to downtown Fort Worth or downtown. Well, that street was known to everybody, just to kind of, especially on weekends, right? People that used to go driving, showing off their cars, cruising down the street for hours, man. It was like 2 in the morning. It was like a normal deal. Um, People go show off their cars. People have their cars, the rims, fix all that stuff. Well, either way, when they won the Super Bowl, we went once down there, and dude, it was think of it like a block party, but blocks and blocks and blocks of a mega block party. Like for blocks and blocks and blocks, everybody was gathered. Everybody was just having a good time. That was a good old days, right? Back when Cowboys were winning Super Bowls. But I'm still a fan, so I'm not gonna stop being a fan. Been a fan for the longest. Gonna continue to be a fan. So let's go ahead and give this tequila a taste. I would say, man, it smells good. Had a real good smell to it. It's strong too, man. Like the smell is strong. I love that. I love tequila that have that real strong smell, like that agave smell. I hate when I taste tequila. I have tasted some tequila that tastes good, but they lack that smell. I don't know why. I don't like that, man. I love the smell of it. I love the strong smell of the agave. It smells good so far. It's good. I gotta say, man, this is pretty good. It doesn't say that it's a premium tequila. A lot of the time, that's what they kind of put out there, premium. Um, but I believe this is considered a premium tequila. It's not cheap by all means. $39, and that's normally the starting point of premium tequilas. But I gotta say, man, it's good. I would recommend it. So far, so good. I am liking it. What about any of y'all? Any of y'all having any drink tonight? What are y'all flavor of drink tonight? Just kind of curious what y'all drinking today. I mean, y'all know what I'm drinking. I'm drinking some tequila. It has a good taste, man. I do like it. I am liking it a lot. Smell. The smell is strong, man. It has a real strong smell, and I like that. But the taste, it does taste, it tastes good. Hey, what's up, Chris? Poland Springs. Hey, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. How's everything going with you, Chris? How's your day going? Going pretty good so far? So next week, on my, I'm gonna still try to have my streaming, because I'm trying to keep it going, right? I want to continue, like, make it a habit to continue doing my streaming. I'm gonna be in Top Golf next week. My brother-in-law, invited me to go to Top Golf on Friday evening. I think we're going around 7:30. But normally when we go, we're there like 3 hours, easy, man. Time flies by so quick. So I need at least to give me time for now to then. But I think I'm gonna do a stream remotely at Top Golf. So I'll be playing some golf next week, and be doing. I think I'm gonna do my stream while I'm over there. So I need to just figure out the best way to do it, but I think that's what I want to do. Yeah, man, same here. It's real fun, man. Like every time we go, so whenever we go, like normally it's like me, my sister, my brother-in-law, my dad, sometimes even my father-in-law, he goes, or my brother, my other brother-in-law. A lot of time it's a few of us, man, like 5, 6 of us. We go, and of course we all bet. We don't bet nothing big, but we bet like $5 a game to see who could score. Whoever score the highest wins. And it just makes it fun, man. It makes it real fun. I mean, it's fun without gambling. You don't have to gamble, of course, but it just makes it that much more funner, I think. Just have a good time, have some drinks. Then, of course, it's fun when you do win. So normally I win at least once, so I don't ever come out negative, right? Especially if it's like six of us playing, you win once. Well, there's what is that, about 30 bucks. But yeah, if you lose the other two times, then hey, you still walk out positive. So it's all good. But no, it's fun, man, and it's not far either, man. For me, it's just like because I live like real close off of 35, so easy access to the freeway, and man, just straight shot, right? Get off. What is it, Belknap or whatever? So, and it's fun. So that's where I'm gonna be at next Friday. But I'm gonna try to continue my streaming. So I may end up doing it remotely over there while we play. So won't be able to really solve any programming issues if somebody has any programming issues, but at least be able to kind of still be able to talk with everybody, and so if somebody does have any questions related to programming, better yet, at least I can try to answer that, or we can just talk about whatever. But yeah, it's gonna be fun next week. So that's where I will be at next week. But I am gonna try to stream it. I just need to figure out the best way to do it. I need to just play around with that. Have I ever built a website? So I have built some websites. That's not my expertise per se. Um, but I have built some websites. Right now, I'm actually building one for the app that I built, the Go Share It app. I think I shared it on my stream before. I don't I don't know if I have. I mean, I know I have, but I just I know I don't share it like all the time. But either way, I built an app called Go Share It. So it's app.goshare.io. Ultimately, it's a sharing platform to be able to share files, and the recipient doesn't need an account. That you need a download link to ultimately access it. So either way, I'm actually working on my website right now to build it. So for me, the thing with websites is it's not my expertise, but I really don't find it as enjoyable to build as, for example, a web app. Like this is a web app, and it's decent enough, right? I mean, ultimately, but when you're building a website, it's a little bit different because there's context you need to come up with, you know. So like I'm not a writer, so like even for my website, I needed to hire somebody to do some of the content writing for my website. And then I'm not a graphic designer either, so I end up hiring somebody to do some artwork, like graphics design work for my website. And then of course I started kind of building the website, and it looks okay. I'm still thinking if I may end up just having somebody else that's more of a expert in that. Because again, when you're dealing with website, it's the thing that makes it, like, I in my mind a little bit more tricky when you're dealing with websites. It's all about, even if you design something that looks very nice on paper, but then you gotta go put it together, and sometimes that becomes a little bit tricky because you want it to work on mobile devices, you want it to shrink when it's mobile, but when you're watching it, looking at a desktop, you want it to expand. And even like on this kind of app, I was able to do all of that with no issue, right? Like if I wanted to make it mobile view, right, I could do it and it all adjusts to fit mobile, so all that's fine. It just, I don't know. I mean, I think with websites, it is a different project, put it that way, to do. It's not the same. Even though I have built many web apps, like dozens and dozens of web apps, from the dashboards to the UIs and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to your websites, it's a different beast, man. It's not the same. And it's one of those tasks where I don't know, like I really don't find it as enjoyable. So I think that's more of a reason why I kind of like stay away from it. Um, so and you can. So what I would recommend, like let's say if you're trying to build a web, so if you're trying to build a website with Python, depending on what kind of website you're trying to build, but if it's going to be something very basic, displaying the page and things of that nature, you could easily go down the Flask route, like Python and Flask. It's real like straightforward to get started and build like a very basic static type website. Even I mean, there's some dynamic pieces that you could put in it, but it's real quick to get started. Like you literally could get started with like maybe one or two Python files, and the amount of code that you're gonna have will be like ultimately you have one file which would be like, let's say, your app file, your app.py for Python for Flask, and that would have just your routing on. If you go to this URL, for example, it'll display this page. If you go to this URL, you could display this page, and then of course you would have the HTML behind it. So if you're dealing with like just one page or maybe two pages, you would have two HTML pages, one for each potentially. Then of course one Python file, and that's it. You're good to go. What you could do as well, and I have done this as well many times, is if you don't want to get too involved in like building a website from scratch, you could find a lot of HTML templates. For example, like what is it? Web templates, for example, right? There's a lot of free HTML web templates. There's some that you could buy, but there are a lot out there that are free as well. And maybe this is one of them. There it goes. So like a lot of these, I don't know if these should be free maybe, but when you look at all of these designs, you find any that you like, right? So let's say you like this guy. I'm trying to see if there's like a download file to download the pretty much the source. Maybe not. Demo HTML templates, Bootstrap builder, website design software. No. Either way, there's places that you could go and you could like try to find a web, like a layout, better yet, that seems fit to what you're looking for, right? If you find something, and again, I have done this before, and I normally do this because I'm not a UI guy. I like dealing with UI programmatic stuff, like let's say using JavaScript or like Vue.js, and for some forms, and do things of that nature. For example, like maybe when you click on something, it expands a list of other forms, or just that's all very more programmatic. But just from a UI front end style, it's just not my style. But again, if you find something, let's say you like this style here, that there are places you could go where you could like download the template. I believe that's what this one does. Download for Windows, professional HTML, blah blah blah. So let's just do this real quick. No, that's not what I want. It's actually downloading a exe file. Nope, I don't want that at all. That's not what I was looking for. Ultimately, what I was looking for is there are play. I have seen them before. I don't know why I'm just not finding any that stand out. I think this is one, Theme Forest. Yep, this is a good one. These you actually gotta pay, but normally they do have some free ones in here. I don't know. There's a way to filter for free, but all of these that I'm seeing you gotta pay for. But nevertheless, I have seen some where they're free and you can just kind of find a template, and ultimately you do just download. What they do, they give you like the source code, which is the HTML, the JavaScript file, if there's any JavaScript file, the CSS files for styling. They kind of give you all of those files all bundled together, ready to go. And really just change the text, right? You could just remove the pictures and place your pictures in there. You could, if you want to customize it so it doesn't look too much like theirs, then that's where you can change some of the colors, things of that nature, right? You could kind of modify to tweak it and make it your own. So that's that's another option to keep in mind if you don't want to build it from scratch, but you're trying to build something, some kind of website. You could try to find some templates, and then of course just download those templates. Like, let's take a look at these templates real quick. These are more like admin templates. So like a lot of the one that you see that specify admin, and the way you kind of see it, that's what normally what they call them. They call them like admin templates. You'll kind of see like the nav bar on the left side or just on top. It's more like if you're trying to build an actual system type layout. Not necessarily a website, but more like a web app. So you could get templates to kind of get you started. You don't have to build everything from scratch. And that's kind of what these are. These are now for website. These are more for like you're building some kind of web app of some sort. But that would be probably the more easier option. Just kind of modify the text to your liking. What are you? I'm just kind of curious, Chris. So what are you? What kind of website are you trying to build? And I know you mentioned Python for it, which Python works very well for websites and web apps and all of that. But I'm just are you using like Django, Flask, Web 2Py, or like what package are you trying to use, I guess, to run the website? What framework, I guess, are you trying to use Python with? Because there is some basic stuff you could do with Python directly. Haven't started, but I wanted to get some ideas before starting. Yeah, so if you're trying to build some kind of website, I don't know, but if you're trying to build a website, depending on what it's going to be. If it's going to be more like just providing information, right? Like, hey, just maybe you're just talking about some kind of subject or whatever it is. Python Flask would work real good. Now, if you're trying to build a website that ultimately may be like a web store as well, where you be selling stuff through online, or you're gonna have a website where maybe you have a page for blogging, right? You're gonna be putting out, blogs every once in a while here and there of whatever topics and subjects you want to talk about and things of that nature. I think for that, I would probably then recommend using something like Django. There are already some projects out there that will get you started. So, for example, what do Django CMS? Oops. Django CMS. So, CMS, think of a CMS being kind of like the equivalent of like a WordPress site. So that'll give you a lot of the features that you would normally get in kind of like WordPress as well. So I don't know if you're familiar with WordPress, or you have done any kind of work with WordPress. WordPress works good when it comes to building websites as well. And it's there's like a UI, and there's a lot of things that it's kind of more UI based, but you want to get very detailed, be more customizable. Then it makes sense to kind of learn PHP to modify some of your WordPress sites and all that, like embedding information, for instance. So are you thinking of like your website would be, for example, where maybe you're calling some some kind of APIs, for example, or something where it's pulling data from this other source and maybe pulling data from some other source. Like I'm gonna make up something, for example. Let's say you're gonna display the weather, where you're calling like the weather API to kind of display that data for weather on your page. Now, assuming you're gonna do something different, maybe if you're into sports, you're gonna like display data, maybe the score for whoever whatever teams are playing for that day. Are you like is that kind of what you mean when you talk about embedding information to your website where you would probably be calling some APIs perhaps, or you're just talking about more like you're going to be gathering data on the back end and maybe storing in a database and then ultimately just render that information to your website? Yeah. Okay. So I think something like that, if you're going to be rendering, like, maybe have some kind of API where it calls this other information, that's, I would probably say that is where JavaScript will come in. You can still use Python. Python will be the backend aspect of it, where it would either let's say for example render your HTML pages, but those HTML pages would have no data, for example, especially if you're calling APIs to pull in information in. Like again, I'm gonna pick sports for example. If you want to display the latest scores for this evening games, you would have to find an API to call, like let's say NBA scores or whatever. But that, in my mind, would be something that would be more so like if I were to do something like that, I would probably do it more so in JavaScript, and then you could have it where it's when they refresh it, the API will get recalled, or have it asynchronous where it would just when things you would either refresh every once in a while, right? And there's different ways to do that. A lot of times there's behind the scenes when data changes from what's being displayed to what exists in the other API server. And then there's this exchange that there's a small data set, like a small communication being passed back and forward every once in a while, and on top of that, it knows if something changed. When something changes, that's how we know to send fresh data back. And when it sends fresh data back, so I don't know if you've ever been to websites where even though you don't refresh the browser, you can see the value change, right? Maybe the score changes on the game or whatever. That's kind of where, depends on how it's set up. It could be done to different ways, but that's kind of how where a synchronization comes in. And not the way that works is there's a small message being sent back and forwards, right? Let's just assume that it's being sent every 30 seconds or whatever. And then the message that being sent back and forwards, it's pretty much checking to see if anything has changed. And when something had changes, that's when the server knows, hey, that message that we've been sending back and forward is different now. It's not the same. So now because it's different, we're going to send fresh data, like an update score, right? For example. And then, of course, your JavaScript, now when I say JavaScript, I don't mean it has to be raw JavaScript. It could be some kind of framework or some kind of library like jQuery, Vue.js, React, any kind of those frameworks. Again, I'm not sure how familiar you are with JavaScript, but if you are familiar with JavaScript, then it doesn't have to be just plain old JavaScript. I mean, it could be something like jQuery or Vue.js or React or what so on, to kind of help with some of the process, some of the setup to accomplish that. But I will say it would be a combination of two things though. It would be you would set up your Python server, the back end. You could probably use something like Django as well, or Flask. It's really up to you. And then on top of that, depending on which API you're calling, that will, in my mind, will probably be more JavaScript related. And then ultimately, that's kind of where you could, depends on how you want to set it up. It could be done based on refresh, where the user has to refresh it manually, and then ultimately it will call the API and get fresh data. Or it could be asynchronous, where there's this communication happening, over and over again, and then of course there's things gets updated. You'll get a new data set. Um, but a lot of, yeah, I mean, there are different options to that. Um, what I'll probably do is I'll try to put something on my I have a list of kind of videos that I'm kind of planning to make. The one that I'm working on now, it's the whole move files from SharePoint over to an S3 bucket. So I'm doing some testing, getting things set up for that. And then there's a few other requests that I got that I have on the list as well to do. But I'll add that on the list. I think that will be something good to kind of make a video over, where we'll kind of go through the process of like setting up a Django project from scratch. Kind of going through that process of setting it up, setting up the settings file, connecting a database if there's a database that's needed, and then also working on the whole JavaScript aspect of it, where if we want to, let's say, call an API that's going to give us data back, kind of build that into the tutorial on how to get that set up, how to get that linked together, and be able to call the API, whether it be by the user refreshing the browser and it'll get fresh data. But again, the API is doing that to get fresh data, or whether it be the asynchronous method where it's connected to it, and as things change, you'll get fresh data over and over again. I think for sure the easiest option would be just have it where the user will refresh, of course, and then like that, a lot of the time where you connect it to certain APIs, especially depending on what the data source is, you may have to pay for it, and they may charge you for like X amount of requests, right? So they're like, all right, for 1,000 requests a month, it's $5 a month. And, for 5,000, it's, I don't know, $15 a month, right? So ultimately, you want to reduce the amount of requests you do, which is why you may not go down that path and just have it more set up where the user has to refresh, and to minimize that count. But I think that would actually be a pretty good project to kind of put together. And at least it kind of will walk you through everything from the setup of Django, how to get started, how to set it up, creating templates in Django, which would be kind of like your HTML, all of that stuff, right? So I'll put that on the list. I think that would be something good to kind of put together. How familiar are you? I'm just kind of curious. Have you been dealing with have you been working with Python for a while, or are you like pretty new with Python? Like, is that like your first language and something that you just started to learn, or are you pretty experienced, I guess, in Python? Man, this smells good. So again, I'll put that on the list. I think that will probably be a pretty good project to work on. Also, too, one of the things that I kind of learned over time, right? When I first got started with Python, like programming, better yet, not even Python programming. You have all these ideas, like, oh man, like I want to build an app, and let's see, I would say on and off 5 months now. Okay, are you been like self-taught pretty much? Like you've been learning on your own, or did you take some sort of boot camp or some kind of online course? And what I guess what got you interested in programming? Like, did are you trying to switch careers? Is that what kind of got you into programming, or like was it a buddy or a friend that kind of got you interested, or just like what got you interested on pursuing programming? Read a lot of books and applied from there. No, that's cool. The one thing I would say when it comes to for me, again, this is everybody's different, right? This is kind of the way it worked for me in a ways. Um, I first got started in databasing. I worked a lot. I was working with databasing for about 3 years to make my life easier for the most part. And here's the thing though, if you do get into, let's say, programming, whether it be Python or other language, doesn't matter, right? But learn the fundamentals of programming, get a good understanding of it, and start building stuff, right? That's at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to. Like really, just start building shit, to kind of uh, try to like. So whenever I first started learning, what helped me out a lot was I actually use Python in my job. But again, I wasn't a programmer and I wasn't getting paid as a programmer or nothing like that. I worked um, in the department that I worked at. What we did a lot with data. We did a lot of data analysis, but we also worked with operations to kind of build like processes, right? So we did a lot of engineering. But again, we weren't programmers and we didn't really program nothing. And we had a discussion, like we had some ideas like, oh, you know what, if we could build like an app, for example, that could do X, Y, and Z, like this would just optimize and automate you know, um, this whole process that we're trying to do. And that's how I got started, where we ended up I ended up having a meeting with IT and I told them, hey, this is what we want to build. Oh, that's too hard. It can't get done. It's impossible, right? That's what they said. I was like, bullshit. Like, I know it could be. Here's the thing: I have never programmed before, but in my mind, I was like, bullshit. This can. I don't know how it could be done, but it has to be done. So ultimately, what I ended up doing was I ended up just kind of learning like crazy, man, like nonstop, every day, every weekend, and eventually. But I was learning in order to apply the idea that I had for this project. Well, that project that I worked on was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. It was extracting PDF data and it was loading that data to a database. It was doing some Excel extraction. So it was reading Excel files, extracting that data, and loading that to a database. And then ultimately from the database, it was generating a CSV file in a specific format to send it to a system to consume in an FTP site. And they're like all the other stuff. Like when I look at it like from a features of what it did, it was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But it worked. At the end of the day, it worked, and I got it to work. And of course, I was like for me, because I was so focused on trying to do something specific, like get a task done at hand, I feel like my knowledge just went through the roof because I think it helps out when you have an idea of something. I know when a lot of the times when you may not have that, um, have that, like have a project, for example, or have some kind of problem that you're really trying to solve. Well, what ends up happening, you're trying to, you're trying to learn through tutorials, whether it be, oh, let's build a calculator tutorial, or let's whatever, and sometimes that helps out, and some of those tutorials they're trying to help out more so in fundamentals and things of that nature, but I don't think it's the same thing though when you really have something legit, right? Like let's say in your case, they were trying to build a website and a website that does X, Y, and Z, and it's going to be pulling data from this API and this API. You're going to learn a lot through that process, through that project, right? That project, you're going to end up learning a lot. You're going to learn how to set up, a backend, probably set up a database, how to get Django set up, how templates work in Django if you're using Django, for example, how views work in Django. So again, it's kind of like Django follows the whole model view controller method. And so if you're familiar with MVC, it Django follows that to some extent. It's actually called different. I think called model view template instead of model view controller, but it's the same concept, right? The concept still very similar. the fundamentals are still very similar to that. So you'll start learning a lot how that operates. And then, of course, in your case, if you're calling APIs, then you start getting familiar on how to call APIs, how to pull data from an API, how to render that data from an API to, let's say, to your website. So, I mean, that could be a good project to kind of really get you going and kind of, expand your experience as well. And again, that's just through my own experience, right? Like everybody's different. Some people learn better by spending, a few years of just kind of learning little bit by little bit by little bit and so on. Mine, it was like I felt like very like rush. And a lot of it had to be because there was an issue, there was a task at hand that I was trying to solve, and I had damn IT telling me that it can't be done, and me being hard-headed the way I am, sometimes I was like, bullshit, it can be done. I don't know how, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to, I just need to learn how to program. If I know how to program, I'll figure it out. And that's ultimately what I did. I think in my case, I ended up taking a Coursera course. This was, again, some years back back when Coursera was actually free. They're like testing the whole model of that. Now I don't think it's free. You got to pay for it. But back then it was free. And the course that I took was more to learn programming fundamentals. They just happened to be using Python though in a lot of their tutorials, and so that was like the language that I kind of just stuck with and learned over time. But again, though, I think if you could find a real problem to solve, that would help your growth big time, big time. And then as you get more confidence and get more comfortable programming, it's going to help you out as well if you ever decide to go and apply for a job somewhere, like, a programming job. Because it could be a little intimidating, man. I don't know if you have done that yet, or if you're planning to do that eventually, like maybe go apply for some kind of programming job. But I do feel like, especially people that are kind of new into programming, it's a little intimidating sometimes because, of course, you're dealing with imposter syndrome, where even if you're good, in your mind you're still thinking, well, am I good enough? Like that guy been programming for 10 years or whatever, I only been doing it for 1 year or whatever, or I don't think I'm as good as these other guys are. But again, a lot of it is you just have to have confidence, man. And then once you start doing it's like anything in life, once you start doing it and you're doing it over and over again, things are just going to start clicking even more and more. And you're going to get better over time. And then just things grow, right? Like for me, Python was my first language. And so, like, let me put it this way. My first technical language was SQL. And then, of course, it was T-SQL, which is the SQL Server Database procedure language. And then it was Python. And then from Python, it became JavaScript. And then, of course, from there, it became learning other frameworks like Django, Flask, Vue.js, so on. And then from there, started learning some C#, started dabbling with some Dart to do Flutter, building mobile applications. And then just, again, over time, you just start working with these other projects. And a lot of it, you start learning very quickly. Like just recently, I've been dealing with AWS for a few years. That's all I have done, AWS stuff, for some years now. And I had a client, they use Azure, and he asked me, they wanted some help to do some pipelines and, to build some pipelines on Azure, and to kind of automate certain processes and, moving data over from point A to point B and so on. Well, I never dealt with pipelines before in Azure. I have dealt something similar with AWS, which is AWS Glue, and their services, right? Their S3 buckets and all of that, but not with Azure. But once you know something, like in my case, I know AWS very well. Once I went over there, dude, it literally took me like, 10, 15 minutes of just reading the docs, just kind of reviewing some basic stuff. A lot of that stuff just clicks like normal. That's what happened when you get very strong, even with one programming language, and you learn the fundamentals and learn all of that stuff. It becomes a lot easier to then switch to another language to learn another framework. And then next thing you know it, you have 2 languages under your belt and maybe a few frameworks. And then from there, you go into learning 3 languages. The next thing you know, you learn 4 languages. I think right now I probably have like maybe 4 to 5 languages under my belt. I'm not experts in all these other ones. I would consider myself more Python first, database procedural languages second, or probably similar. They're probably tied. And then of course from there will be JavaScript third, and then it will be probably, I don't know, C#, .NET framework, and then probably I've done some work on Swift and Dart. Those are probably just like the ones towards the bottom, right? Like I haven't done a lot of work, but I have done some. So with any work that I have to do, most often I should, whatever I don't know, I think I'll be able to figure out in a very short period of time. So, but that's all of that comes with experience, but it comes by just doing, right? You want to always make sure you're staying active, you're learning, you're expanding, and better yet, doing as well. So as you read, like, try to code up as well, and try to understand what you're coding, and whatever you're coding, makes sense. And then over time, you start realizing you start dealing with all these different packages, especially dealing with Python. Like I have dealt with like dozens and dozens of packages, and some of them I only use maybe once. Others I use over and over again. It just depends on what it is that I'm trying to do. But yeah, I would recommend, man, just kind of keep pushing forward, keep doing it. Um, and then not just that, if you could get a job in that field, I mean, again, I don't know what you do now, like career wise, but being a programmer it does pay well, man. By all means, it does pay well. I'm somebody who came, so just kind of tell you my background in a ways. I I didn't go to college. After high school, I went and just got a job. I worked in a warehouse. I was a forklift driver. Then I became like a lead in the warehouse, and I did that for a few years, probably until my good like 27 or so, right? Almost. I guess I graduated when I was 17, so about 10 years. Eventually, though, in the warehouse job that I worked at, I started learning about like process, like kind of like engineering, creating process flows. But I started doing that on my own time. Nobody asked me to do it. I just did it because in my mind, like, man, if I could show them that I could do this, there may be some value, and I could like open up my own doors, right? Open up my own opportunities. And I don't think the company that I did it for really like took it as serious or really appreciated it. I think what happened was we had our biggest client, which back then, again, this is some years back, but back then was BlackBerry. Back when BlackBerry was actually big. They saw some of my work, some of the process flows that I created and stuff like that, and they were very impressed. They're like, we want this for all of the stuff that we're doing, all the processes we had. They had all kinds of processes. We want this done. Like, we want to see this. This is awesome. So it's almost like the company was forced to like, hey, well, we need to take you out the warehouse floor now and bring you to the office because now the client wants this, and they want you to do it because you already shown that you could do it. And that was kind of like the way I took my own self out of the warehouse into an office. And then once I was in the office, the IT department asked me to help them out to do some documentation because I was very familiar with all the processes. And then, of course, that's when they kind of asked me about like, hey, can you help out with some documentation? I told them yeah. And then that's where I saw somebody doing some SQL work, and I was like, dude, like, I want to learn SQL. Like, can I help you out? Like, sure. He didn't want to do it. He was a C# programmer. He didn't want to deal with SQL. I was so interested in it. So I went home, started learning the crap out of SQL, came back, ended up building a view for the report that they needed. And then, of course, after that, they're like, dude, this is awesome. Like, it works. It does what here's the thing, man, that SQL view that I built was crap. It was terrible, man. I went back, like, some years after that, I went back and took a look at it, and it was trash. Like, I can't believe it was like so anybody who's familiar with SQL, You have with subqueries. Pretty much is a query inside another query. Well, again, I know this now, but I did not know this back then. When you start having a subquery within a subquery within a subquery within a subquery and so on and so on, like all nested one within another, that is bad from a performance standpoint. It's bad. My report that I created like literally took like 35, 40 seconds to run. That's a long time. But from a business operation, they're like, dude, it gets the job done. Like, we don't mind waiting 40 seconds to run it. It's something we just have to run, let's say, once a week, anyways. So they're like, awesome. We love it. Either way, that was the kind of like the whole, what got me into IT. The IT manager asked me, like, hey, do you want to come work for us? And I was like, sure. Like, now I'm moving. Again, I went from being a warehouse lead, moved into the office, doing process flows, to now working in the IT department. Because the manager asked me, come over. Then eventually I end up moving to corporate office. And that's kind of where we're doing a lot of like database stuff, right? Analysis. And again, eventually that's where I started kind of learning how to program in Python to build, to automate a lot of the stuff that we're doing. Again, how I mentioned earlier, extract data from PDFs, load it to a database. We're extracting data from Excel files, load it to database, and ultimately we're importing that into the system and having all that automated. Like, there are all kinds of stuff we're doing. And even though when I think about it now, it's like, all right, nothing like crazy, right? I mean, it's still not easy, but nothing crazy. But dude, I built all of that, like literally learning programming, like learning how to program just for a few weeks. But it just, because I was so determined, man. I was so pissed off that, we had a meeting with IT. They're like, oh, no, that can't be done. It's impossible to be done. Like, bullshit. Don't tell me it can't be done. I'm not a programmer, but I know it could be done. And again, that was I think that was my push, right? That really motivated me, like, go, learn programming, learn it, like, try to learn it fast, because I wanted to build something to prove those bastards wrong, that they were wrong, and they were wrong. And again, I think they knew they were wrong. I think the reason why they said what they said, like now that I look at it, was more they just didn't want to do it. So for them, it's easy to say that, and then of course the business to take their word, because they're like, hey, well, the IT department saying that it can't be done, so we can't do it. Like, it's easy, like, to say that, but again, you say that because normally, most likely, you don't want to do it, right? That's the whole purpose behind it. And I think that's what happened, right? At the end of the day, I think that's really what happened. So it's, but I didn't take it that way. I took it as, these bastards are telling me that it can't be done. I'm going to prove them wrong. And technically, I did prove them wrong. But I do realize, too, that they were saying that because they just didn't want to spend time on building that, right? And somebody who knows how to program, that's why I'm not very, I would say, I'm very hesitant if somebody were to ask me, like, hey, I got this business idea to build the next Instagram or Facebook or whatever, right? Some kind of app. Like, it's going to be like, it's going to do X, Y, and Z and do all this stuff. But I just need somebody to code it for me. Like, those kind of proposals, I don't even, like, entertain, because it's like, dude, most of the time, you don't really know what it takes to roll out a project to that level. It may sound easy because, like, oh, Facebook's already doing a lot of the stuff that I want done. I just want this slightly different or this slightly different, But, it's like trying to create another Twitter, competitor, right? But there's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes, man. A lot of crap that may seem easy initially. And there's some pieces that you could build out pretty fast. There's a lot of back-end stuff you got to deal with, like security, data backups, how you're going to manage all of that, having everything up and running. How do you optimize it in a way, especially if you're dealing with something that's going to be very big in scale? You got to deal with all of those issues, right, to optimize it where it's not, everybody's online, and everybody isn't, like, being timing out because the server cannot handle all the requests. Like, there's all kinds of stuff to come. Like, there's issues that I have been having to deal with even with my app that right now we're in beta version that relates to email notifications. I was sending email notifications out of the server, But I guess that IP address that belongs to the server that's sending out the email notifications, there was like one service for some reason that had it blacklisted. And because it's blacklisted now, it seems like it won't even send my emails out to nobody. So I was like, what the hell, man? Like, that sucks. If somebody wants to share this document with somebody to email, but now they're not even receiving the email. Like, that's a big issue. Like, even though it's something programmatically that's not wrong, but it's something like beside program from a program standpoint. So I mean, it just, there's all kinds of surprises that pop up, right? That you got to deal with. So let's see, man. It's already 10:25. Damn, time actually went by pretty quick. So let's see. So let's kind of talk a little bit about AWS SDK for Python. And this is something that I'm actually going to be using for my project. So I'm going to be using this for the project that I'm going to be working on, which is going to be to take files from Sharepoint and then ultimately upload the files to an S3 bucket. But one of the things I kind of want to review with you is the SDK that I'm going to be using. Let's see. So let's kind of take a look at the documentation. So there's all kind of stuff you could do with it, right? There's an API for an S3, so let's kind of go down that piece, because that's ultimately what we're going to be focusing on. And it's actually not too bad. It'll make sense once I put the video together and put it all together, but it's actually not too bad. Let's see. So we have, let's look at some examples real quick. Trying to see if they have an example right now relates to, there goes upload and download. So the main thing that we will need, of course, is besides providing our, which I think is right here, right? This key ID, is this being provided somewhere? No, this is not it. Where, I need to find another example. Maybe it's under service and the resources. No, I don't think it's under here. No, this is not it. Let's look at objects. There it goes. So let's say we're gonna not download file, upload file. There you go. This is what I want to look at. So when you actually look at it, it's pretty straightforward, right? You know, we specify the resource that we're going to use, because again, we could specify different resources depending on what it is we're trying to do, whether it be start EC2 instance, whether it be run AWS glue job. There are all kinds of stuff that we could do here. And then ultimately we specify the bucket, and then we're going to specify the file. Now here's the thing with the bucket though. If you have a bucket and you have a folder inside the bucket and another folder inside the bucket, you got to specify that too. It would be bucket, then of course the folder, you know, whatever other folders are inside that bucket that you want to upload the file to. And then ultimately you specify the name, and then this is where it's coming from, right? So in this case, which folder are you uploading from? And then it really isn't that hard, but what I'm going to be doing in the video that I'm working on is we're going to kind of build the integration all together. Where when you run the script is going to do a few things. It's going to like download files from Sharepoint, store those files locally or in memory. I'm not sure yet, but either way, maybe we'll do both. And then it's going to take those files and then ultimately upload it to your S3 bucket. And you know, so the actual uploading piece, again, it's not hard. It's just a matter of kind of putting all those pieces together to kind of streamline the process of download. Because ultimately that will be two sets of credentials we have to deal with: the Office 365 credentials, and then the AWS, the user account, API, secret key, and access ID. You know, we have to have all that information saved. Then ultimately, you know, it would do one step in the other. So that's pretty much what I'm testing right now. I just need to finish my testing so I can do a video. I may do it tomorrow. So I should be able to finish my testing tomorrow. Then if I do, I may try to make the video tomorrow. If I don't do my video tomorrow, I think Sunday for sure I'll make the video and then have it published Sunday evening, or have it scheduled to release sometime Monday in the day. So I'm almost there though. Just need to finish doing my testing on it. The only reason why testing taking a little bit longer is because I created a whole nother AWS account, console manager account, that's tied to my contact IMLU account, and then ultimately all of my testing that I do will be strictly it'll be on the second account pretty much, right? That I'll have. So I just had to go through that process, get that set up, make and so on. I've still been getting a lot of emails related or messages related to the SharePoint access. And I think what makes it tough though is, like, I'm just looking at a few of them right now. There's all kinds of different issues, right? And it's tough because one of the things that I'm noticing is, I think a lot of the times when you have your organization setting a lot of these conditions of access conditions on their tenant, it could be for all different reasons, right? Sometimes it could be because you're not part of the same network. It could be because you're using a different operating system. It could be because you're not using a work computer, you're using your personal computer. It could be, I mean, man, there's so many different IP related issues. Maybe you're not part of the VPN. Like, I'm getting all the different kind of issues. Some issues. So if you get an issue where you're trying to connect and the connection is telling you no error message was found, and it just kind of gives you some kind of real generic like error message, that what I have noticed is more so related because it's not an Office 365 account. Like, it's not a SharePoint cloud version. It's actually an on-prem. And I created a video for SharePoint on-prem, and ultimately the purpose of that video is more so to show how to connect to an Office 365 on-prem, and that's the whole purpose behind that video. But a lot of the error messages that I'm getting are not those error messages. They're more so related to, it's all credentials, like authentication, but it's for all different reasons. Some of them relate to multi-factor authentication purposes. Here's the thing about, if your company has multi-factor authentication set, there's not much we can do. The whole purpose for multi-factor authentication is when you log in, you have to confirm to a second message that's you, whether it be through a text message on your phone, whether it be through an authenticator app. I mean, it just depends on what they have set up, right? Whether it be through a USB stick. I mean, it just depends on what they have set up, but that makes it challenging. Now, the way to work around that would be if you're really trying to automate something for your company, again, where your company is going to benefit from it, and they hopefully they're on board with it. That is where you would do something like ask the company if they could create a user account that does not have multi-factor authentication set up, and that user account would only have limited access to, let's say, whether it be SharePoint or whatever it is, and then you could use that account to authenticate and to connect, and you don't have to worry about the multi-factor authentication. But if you are dealing with that issue when it comes to connecting to SharePoint and you're getting like multi-factor authentication or some kind of error message like that, there's really nothing you could do in those cases. That's more so because the company you work for has set up in their tenant profile that multi-factor authentication has been enforced. So anybody who logs in need to use multi-factor authentication. And I mean, I wish there was a workaround, but there really isn't. I mean, the only true workaround is kind of what I just mentioned, right? Having the company create a different account, a different user account that does not have multi-factor authentication set up, and then you could use that account to connect to SharePoint and do any kind of automation you're trying to do, right? To download, upload, or whatever it is you're trying to do. That's really the only workaround way that I could think of, man, to kind of bypass that. Um, and that's not only for SharePoint. That's really would be anything related to Office, right? So if you're trying to integrate anything that requires credentials for Office, whether it be, I guess, OneDrive will be another one. 365. See, so here's the thing with OneDrive. OneDrive, you have workarounds. Technically, even with SharePoint, there's some workarounds as well. You know what? I probably should have showed y'all that, man. Let me show y'all. That's actually something good to show. I don't know why. I should have included this in there as well as an option. All right, so let me share my screen real quick. Okay, so for example, let's just assume that you are dealing with an organization that has these restrictions, right? Where you have multi-factor authentication set up and all this other stuff set up. So there is another workaround. I just thought about it, and this actually will work. That workaround would be this corporate icon that I have here. I app it. That's my business. This is ultimately my connects to my SharePoint sites. So these are the different sites that I have. I have three. I actually have more, but these are three that I have in sync to my my directory. If I were to click on one of these, let's just click on this development, and I click on YouTube's, right? And let's say YouTube 2020. I have all these files. So let's say if I'm trying to automate something where I'm trying to download all of these files and maybe upload it somewhere else, but I do not have multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication prevented me from using the script the way it is. So the workaround would be, okay, can you link in your SharePoint down to your account? And there is a way to do that. Let me do it real quick. Let me go to my SharePoint site. Damn, this tequila smells good. Let's see. Damn, I'm actually logged in under a different account. This is not the account that I wanted. So let me log out. Why am I signed in? There it goes. I want this account. See if it logs me in now. Yep, there it goes. Okay, so now let me open it up real quick. Let me go to SharePoint. Let me kind of find what I'm looking for. Come on, man. I don't know why Microsoft's taking its sweet time to load. There it goes. Damn, it is still taking a long ass time to load. Why is it taking there, man? That took a long ass time. All right, so I'm going to share it. So if you go to your site and let's say you go to documents, because that's where all your files are in. See this icon here, this sync icon, or better yet, add a shortcut to OneDrive. I believe it's going to be this guy now that I think about it. Add a shortcut to OneDrive. I already have it. Yeah, maybe I added it twice. I already have it once already, so I didn't need to do that. But either way, by doing that, what it would end up doing is it's going to now add it. Let me make sure. Yeah, it's going to add it in here. So now you could access all of your files that belong to that SharePoint site. And this would actually be, this actually is a nice workaround, because if you cannot connect to SharePoint the other way, well, the other way would be, okay, well, let's go ahead and access it this way. So now when you want to download files, like access files, you could just write a script, like a normal Python script, and it would actually you would just call this directory path. This directory path would actually be able to access these files, because it's locally, right? You're running your Python script, sees this being a local directory. So you're not even calling SharePoint, you're not even integrating with SharePoint. It's literally just calling your local files. And then as you decide to do whatever you please with these files, maybe you're moving these files somewhere else, right? Or but whatever it is that you're trying to do with it. Maybe you're going to move it to an S3 bucket, right? In our case, well, instead of calling SharePoint and download, you will literally just call this path, and then you could upload it directly to wherever you're trying to do to it. Hey, so let's see, what do we have? So how do you run a Python script in Excel so that everyone can run it at an organization level? So you really wouldn't run Python in Excel. What you could do is you could have a Python script. Let's say if you have a Python script that's doing, like, interacting with Excel, maybe, I don't know, it's either updating some rows in Excel, or maybe it's moving files from like one Excel file over to another folder, or doing something of that sort. I'm assuming, I think what you mean is you have a Python script that maybe is either adding data to Excel, or doing something with like one specific Excel file. I'm going to assume that's kind of what you mean. There are some add-on packages, like add-ons that you could add for Excel that ultimately allows you to do that a little bit easier. The problem with that is that when you share that Excel file with somebody else, that other person will need to have that add-on as well. So anybody who has a file, they will all need to have the add-on. Let's see, correct, adding data to a spreadsheet. So if you're just adding data to a spreadsheet, everybody could still access the same Excel file. So let's say you have file 1, right? And just call it, let's call it employee list Excel file. And let's say you're taking data and you're adding new employees to that file, like when new people get hired on. In theory, that file could be saved anywhere. You could save it on SharePoint, OneDrive, wherever it is you have it shared. You could just have a script that ultimately points to that file, wherever that, and you would just kind of add on to it, right? You would just add new data to it, and anybody who has the link or has access to that file could access it with no issue. So I don't think that would be the problem. Now, if your goal is you want other people to run that script, that Python script, to like load data to the file, right? You have employee 1, employee 2, and employee 3, and you want all of them to run the script, and or every time they run it, it's going to be loading data to the Excel file. Then that would be a little bit different because everybody would need, let's see, what do you say? But pulling data from different databases. Yes, I would like other people to be able to run it. Um, so the easier option is, of course, everybody needs to have Python installed. That's not always the ideal option because a lot of people may not know how to install Python. Um, I would say the workaround for that would be, let me show you real quick, right? So let's kind of go to it. If we go to python.org, right? So you know how we could download the Python interpreter? Well, you're going to see an option here that's called, let's go to Windows real quick. You're going to see an option here that is called, let's see, not the installer. Is it the embedded package? I believe maybe it's this guy. Yeah, it is this guy, the embedded package. So what this means is you don't need to technically install Python in any machine. You can just start using it right out the box. So one way, like one workaround, just want to make sure. Let's say it's a script to manage subscriptions. So if you're pulling, I'm just kind of so if you have a script, for example, I know you mentioned you want other people to run it. Is that something though that could be automated? Like maybe you have scheduled to say, have it run at midnight every day, or have it run at 6 in the morning, maybe at noon or whatever, and just have it run automatically where nobody has to run it. Is that something that works as an option, or does it make more sense where people run that script manually every time they want to run it? And the reason why I'm asking that is because, like, I deal with a lot of stuff where I'm pulling data as well from databases. And normally what I do, at least in my case, and this, again, it may not work in your case, but it works in my case, where I have a service, and ultimately that service is on schedule to, let's say, run at midnight, and it runs a specific script, to do whatever it is I'm trying to do. And it would just run automatically. It doesn't require any user to execute that Python script. The service that I'm running would just run the script for me on schedule. So that's kind of why I'm asking if that's a option. Yes, but the company wants the option to manually run it as well. Got it. Okay, so I would say if you're gonna have multiple people using it, running it, without wanting multiple people to have to install Python and go through that whole process, the option would probably be what I did right now. I downloaded Python, the what is considered the embedded version. Let me find that folder real quick. Where is it at? There it goes, right here. So this version here, you'll see this python.exe. If I wanted to run a script in Python, for example, I could call this, and I just want to kind of show you on how it would look, for example, to like execute it. So it would be something like python.exe. And I would end up doing is I would create a damn, I just had it in my mind. I would end up creating what is a what is it? What, man? I'm trying to think. My mind kind of went blank right now. A Windows bat file. That's what I was thinking, a Windows bat file. So I would create a Windows bat file, and inside that Windows bat file, it would pretty much say something like this: run this version of Python, which is again a portable version of Python, which means as long as this, if you were to share this file with some, like let's say you were to share the script with somebody, or put it on the network or whatever you do, you would end up kind of embedding everything. Like you would package this folder with all the files. Then let's say you could, the way I would probably do it would be something like in my case, I would say I would create a new folder, and let's say we're gonna call this Python, I don't know, project, 1, just whatever it is. This embedded file, like this folder, I'm gonna move inside this folder over here. And then I would end up creating a my Python file, right? Let's say I'm gonna call it app.py, right? Let's just call it that right quick. Whenever I will create I need to get this again, but nevertheless, what I would end up doing in this case would be I would have this embedded. Oh man, I need to get it from here. So it could be shared on SharePoint, for sure. You wouldn't be able to execute it on SharePoint because again, SharePoint would just store it. It wouldn't necessarily execute on SharePoint. But if you needed somebody to let's say download this file, right? Let's say, again, I called it Python project 1. So you could technically upload this folder, in a zip format, or just upload it as is. You could upload it to Python, to a SharePoint site. They would have to download it locally, but they wouldn't have to install Python. It would just be a matter of, let's say if you were to, if I were to put this in a zip file, which you upload it to SharePoint. If somebody ever wants to run it, they could download the zip file, and then all they have to do is unzip it. And when they unzip it, what I would also do in here would be I would create I'm going to call this run.bat file. This run.bat file would technically have this line of command that I would put here, which is ultimately would be pointing to this folder, the Python pretty much .exe file, and then it would end up specifying the app.py, and ultimately the bat file would end up running, will run this version of Python and this file without the user having to install Python and go through that whole process. It's kind of, think of it like a portable version of actual Python. That would be one option. Now the other option, but it does take a little bit more effort, would be to actually create an app. An app that would connect to, let's say, your database, for example. And then of course, it would be able to load files to that Excel file directly. And then if you do something like that, then ultimately anybody that has that app, it will be a Python code that you would have to compile to a .exe file. And then ultimately you just run the exe file. Anybody could run it, and then it would do that task, right? Which is what it sounds like. What you're trying to do is pull data from databases and load it to Excel. It will perform that task. That does take a few more effort and things of that nature. But I think I want to call it quick, easy, dirty way to do it would be something like this. And then you would just package this up as a zip file, ship it on over, send it to whoever you're going to share it with. Then they could just download it and then run it. And then, without having to install Python, it would just kind of work out of the box type deal. So again, there's always more than one way to do things. We done something like that, something similar to that. Back in the day, whenever I used to work for this company called Smith & Nephew, where on their corporate network we had a an app that ran. So as long as you have access to that corporate network, you could go and then kind of run that app. When you run it, it opens up. It was like a desktop app, and it connected to databases and kind of did all kinds of other stuff. But all it required them, like they didn't have to install nothing. In that case, was slightly different because I actually compiled that app to a .exe, and they just had to like double click on it. It opens up, and then it just works. But it was on the network, so as long as you had access to the network, you could run it. My current solution was using py installer, to package the script. So that's an option, and that's kind of where I was mentioning about the .exe. That is another option, and that option will work because you're ultimately programming everything already behind the scenes, right? Your script would be connecting to the database and loading data to the file and doing all that stuff. So from an end user standpoint, it is going to be easier. They literally just have to double click, right, the .exe file, and then it would run, and you're good to go. And that works fine. I actually finished working on a this project for one of my clients. And let me find it real quick using the py installer, and it worked. I don't know how, if you have experience using py installer, but it works pretty good. I haven't had any issues. And it's pretty straightforward. It could be there's the one that I had issues with before because I used that in the past was a py2 exe, and that works fine. But I do feel like you have issues when you're dealing with a lot of different packages. In my case, I was dealing with a database package with Excel, all these other packages, and that's where I noticed some of the DLLs that were needed, I had issues with. But I really haven't had issues with that. Do you have any experience Excel wings? So you know what? I don't, but I actually got a request from a viewer about doing some work related to that. So I started looking into it. I'm aware of it because I've seen it before. So I've seen it for a couple of years already. So I know what it is. I just never really played with it. But I did have a viewer asking some help related to that. So I started looking into that, and probably once I kind of look into it, like review the docs and do some testing, I may go ahead and make a video related to Excel wings. It seems pretty interesting, the project. I mean, it's kind of it seems like it's actually something that it's not Python script that's communicating with Excel. It's more like Python script actually running inside Excel. Kind of, I guess in this case, and technically to potentially replace VBA. I have done a lot of VBA work, and it's not too hard to use VBA once you gotta get familiar, but I still prefer Python in those cases. I think the only issue the only issue I see with like Excel wings is if you ever have to share that file with other people, compared to like VBA, right? With VBA, at least whoever receives the file, they could activate VBA, or they could like utilize those VBA features because it's all part of Excel to begin with. Excel wings is one of those deals where unless other people in the corporation that's going to be using it, right, that's going to be using it, have that add-on installed, you're going to have issues with it, I believe, running. I believe, I'm still learning of it, but I believe that you may have issues where if I have that configured on my machine, but let's say the other user does not, and if I share the Excel file, whatever features that I program may not work on their machine unless they configure, that add-on as well. That's my assumption in ways based on what I was kind of looking at. But again, I could be wrong. I'm still kind of reading the docs, and I just started reviewing it this week. Let's see. So I watched your SharePoint video for pulling a file from SharePoint. I'm trying to load that file into XW workbook. So when you say you're trying to load the file to XW workbook, so when it comes to downloading Excel Wings, so are you trying to like read like so on that video, right? You know, there's a process where I just download, then I save locally on my machine. So that download piece, it's not reading the data or nothing. Literally saving whatever version exists in a SharePoint, it's saving it to your local machine. But are you saying though that you want to actually read the data in Excel file and then load it to? So instead of writing it to Excel or CSV, so let me open up that source code real quick, because I believe you should be able to do that with no issue. Let me go ahead and open up that source code real quick. I'm gonna let's see. So you must have been, the video must have been the download SharePoint files. I believe that's what it's called. All right, so that's good. That's good. That's good. Okay, so let me go ahead and share this real quick. I was able to get it into a data frame. So let's take a quick look at it. I didn't think I was doing that, but maybe I am. Again, it's been a while since I created this video. I know I created some other ones that were slightly different. But if we take a look at it, this is the download SharePoint files. So assuming we're calling the download, so see how we had this save file, right? Here's this save file function that we have in here. I'm not reading anything here. So what I'm doing here is, I'm see how we have a WB, so ultimately, you know, write binary, but it's taking the file as is. It's taking the raw file. So let's say if you happened, let me again. I had this open already. So let's say if I were to want to download, here it goes. Here's a sample Excel file. If I open it up, again, just basic data in here, right? Nothing special. But this file, the way it is, if I were to download it to what this is doing here when it comes to the save as, it's actually going to save that file exactly the way it is on your local desktop. That's what ultimately should happen in that case. It's not reading line by line the file. It's literally just taking that file as is in SharePoint and pretty much saving the same version that you see in SharePoint down to your local machine. So even if the version in SharePoint has VBA code or has formulas or whatever it is, it still should take that everything the way it is, and then ultimately just save it locally, right on your desktop machine. That's what it should do. Now, is that what you're doing, or are you trying to go even further to say, let me read the file in from that Excel file and ultimately save it to this other Excel file that happens to be an Excel Wings workbook or something. I just want to make sure I understand that piece on because I know you mentioned I was able to get into a data frame, and on my code I'm not doing that. I'm not saving it to a data frame. But I just wanted to see. I'm assuming maybe that's something that you're doing on your side, where you're probably, I don't know if you're reading the Excel file perhaps, and then you're saving it to a data frame. But I'm not doing that on my end. Okay, so you are doing that. All right, cool. All right, man. Well, I do appreciate you. I'm glad that you liked the video. So I got a list of videos on my to-do list that I'm going to be working on. So there'll be a lot more coming out. I think the schedule is going to be probably 2 videos a week that I'm kind of, getting working into my schedule. So there'll be a lot of more videos to come. So if you are reading it into a data frame, I'm trying to think. Let's see. Again, I'm still kind of playing around with this, but let's see. So, are you saying? And again, this is me just kind of because I'm not familiar, but a Excel Wings, Excel file, I guess, is it not saved as a Excel XLLSX file? Is it saved as a different, like a Wings format file? I'm reading it from an Excel file to a data frame. Yep, due to the formulas on the original spreadsheet. Okay, so I see that you're reading it from Excel file to data frame. Um, let me see. But is your ultimate goal here, and this is where I just want to make sure, so it sounds like your goal is to take that data and add it to this, what you're calling, right? This is what you're talking about, this book object, pretty much. Like you're going to create a new book and then ultimately save. When you save it, it would be an Excel extension still because it's an Excel file, but it would be, I guess it would be saved with the Excel Wings, some kind of it must be identified somehow that it was created with Excel Wings, maybe. Um, so because you are putting it into a data frame, by default, that should remove all of your formulas. I'm assuming, are you trying to keep all the formulas in your you are trying to keep, right? You want to keep all the original formulas in that Excel sheet. So just to make sure I understand though, those Excel files that let's say live in SharePoint, are those Excel files that are like Excel wing Excel files, that have that functionality? Yes, I need to keep all the formulas. Okay. So for sure, if you download Excel from SharePoint to your local directory, kind of like what I was doing initially here, that will save all of your formulas still intact. So that I know for sure would work. Now, but it sounds like you want to also, um, and again, this is a piece where I'm just not 100% sure yet because I'm still getting familiar with Excel wings. It's still kind of something new to me still, but where did I have that at? All right, Chris, take care, man. Yes, I need keep all the formulas. Okay, so if the Excel file in SharePoint has formulas, you could download locally. By doing that, it will keep all the formulas still, so formulas don't disappear. Everything's still intact. But it sounds like though you're trying to do something with Excel wings. I guess that's the only piece I'm trying to make sure I understand, the Excel wings piece. The Excel wings, are you trying to now, I guess read that data, but still keep the formulas and maybe add it to another workbook that happens to be an Excel Wings workbook? Or are you trying to convert that specific Excel file to Excel Wings, I guess, right? Like where Excel Wings can interact with the data. I think that's the only piece that I'm kind of just trying to make sure I understand, that I'm not so I could kind of better, I guess, provide a solution for, is because I do know, like, again, kind of going back to this piece of code. This code here, let me make it a little bit bigger. This code here will download my bad. So where like this will download the file, we'll get the file, but the save file function, it's gonna save that Excel file with all the formulas intact. Let's see. Oh, hi, Lou. Can I ask you something? Yeah, I'm thinking that I almost need to just create a new database for this. And just save all of my legacy data. I would say for sure, man. That would probably be a good option for sure. All right, man. Take care. All right, so let's see. Oh, hi, Luke. Can I ask you for something? Oops. Let me try to move this. Can't really see the name that good. Yeah, yeah. You can. You can ask me whatever. Ask me any question you want. I'd be more than happy to help out whichever way I can. So again, any questions you have, feel free to ask. So what's your question for me for today? Is it programming related? I mean, it really doesn't matter. You're more than welcome to ask me whatever questions you may have. Again, this is my session drinking with Lou. I'm drinking some tequila. This is some good tequila, I gotta say. Can I ask you about how using the PBX refresher? Yeah, yeah. So, are you having any issues with that? I know I have a video related to that. any issue that you're having, or I guess what's your question? Yeah, nice talking to you too. Are you a follower of mine, or you just kind of happen to find me just through live stream? So yeah, again, you could ask me whatever question you have. If you have any issues, we could try to review the code or take a look at what's happening. Um, so yeah, just let me know what you're more than welcome to ask me anything, any questions that you may have. Again, for those of you who are joining, man, appreciate it. Um, Said now I'm a follower here. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. So those of you, so also just kind of thanks for following. One of the things also just want to kind of let you know I am doing. I have a lot of equipment like this. I'm a tech guy. I like tech. So I have like a few motherboards, a few CPUs, a lot of RAM, extra mice, and the keyboard. The list goes on and on, right? So one of the things that I'm going to be doing, and I'm working on putting something together for next month or April. We're already in April, right? So for April, where I'm going to be every month, I'm going to be giving away some of the items that I have. Maybe it's a keyboard one month. It may be a mice, one of my mice that I don't use no more a month. They're all good equipment. It just I don't use it anymore. So I'm going to be giving them to my followers, whoever is in need of one, right? So if you're in the need of a CPU or some RAM or even a GPU, um, whatever it may be, thanks for following. I'm going to be kind of releasing some more information on that probably the next week or so. So if you're interested on that equipment that I'm going to be giving away, I'm going to kind of show give y'all some directions on how to sign up for it. And then ultimately I will do some kind of live stream raffle, right? And whoever, name I pull out, gets it. So again, thanks for following. That's something that I'm going to be doing starting this April, and I'm going to be doing it every month going forward after that. And then hopefully it'll help out somebody who needs some equipment as well. So let's see. I was reading the back there from this PBX refresher, and just right now I saw your video. Fortunately, You are streaming also, just right now. Oh, okay, okay. So that's how you saw me. 'Cause you're watching my video and started. I was streaming. Well, thanks for joining the stream. Did you have any issues? Like, I don't know if did you try to use the PBX refresher, or did you have any issues with it or anything? Or and if you did, be more than happy to kind of help you out on whatever issues you may have. So let me switch my screen for now. All right. And again, so one of the things too is have a new video coming out. Probably it should probably come out Sunday. Related to downloading file from SharePoint and uploading them to AWS S3 bucket. And there's a few other videos that I'm gonna put together as well, like how to create user accounts in AWS for the purpose of getting the secret API and API ID, because you need to create that profile anyways to be able to connect, to the SDK, AWS, for my case, for uploading to S3. So I actually got a few videos coming up related to that. One on how to create AWS user accounts for API purposes, then set specific rules. Like in my case, only S3 bucket access. And then of course I have another video on downloading from SharePoint and uploading to S3 bucket. So that should be coming out in the next couple of days. So I thought instead of figuring out how to make that work, I could ask the expert. Hey, I'd be more than happy to see what I could do to help you out. So what's your issue, or what's your question? Hopefully I have an answer for you, but even if I don't, hopefully we can figure it out. We may be able to figure it out. So, sometimes I may not always have the answer, but I'm tend to be okay, or at least good, I guess, to figuring out the answer if I don't know. So we could try to figure it out. So let's see. I was actually trying to make that work even before pip, the PBIX refresher. I didn't understand very well this method you use to run the PBX refresher. Okay, so let me try to find the let me find that code real quick. Let's see. Is it this guy? I think it's this guy. Let me open this up real quick. All right, give me 1 second real quick. So I do have the project open. Let me go ahead and share it real quick, and we can kind of discuss that a little bit. So that project, it's a different project, right, than some other projects. Damn, am I sharing my screen? There it goes. Let me open up that YouTube. This guy. All right, cool. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So, as we kind of saw in the video, of course, right? We literally the main thing is installing this PBI refresher, right? So what that is, it's slightly different than some of these other packages, right? Normally in Python, when you install, let's say, a package to read Excel data or whatever it may be, you kind of install a package, but it's all in native Python. In this case, it's slightly different. It is a .exe file. Ultimately, what we're doing in this case, we're just executing that this exe file is what we're ultimately running, and when we run it, it would end up refreshing our file. Now, the reason why it kind of falls under the whole Python category, I'm trying to find the website real quick so we kind of see it. PBIX refresher. This guy. So this is ultimately a Python script that was built, right? But when so there, not to go too much detail into it, because I actually looked into this and I played around with it a little bit, and ultimately what it's doing at the end of the day, it's opening up the and again, let me find that real quick. Do you know how could I make it run by inside a Python module, for example? So I think in your case, what you're saying is instead of running a command line of like the PBI refresher.exe and specifying the file, you want that to run in a Python script, right? Is that what I'm understanding? You actually want to run that inside a Python script to execute that. So I think if that's what you're trying to do, which is execute the command line, I just want to make sure that you're trying to run that inside Python instead of so the way it runs today. Okay, yes, yep, you said yes, so yeah, that's what it is. All right, so we could do that, and let's do that real quick. So the way we would do this would be, let's see. I've actually done this before a couple of times. Okay, so I actually have a project that I did something very similar to this, right? So let's do this. Let me go ahead and open up this project. Close out of this. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create a new file. Let's just call it for right now. Run refresher.py. Right, let's just call it that real quick. So also I know I didn't even need to pip the, but I could just figure out how the is using. Well, you do need pip, but in this case, pip is to install the PBI refresher. And since we want to run it, like you want to run it inside Python without having to run a like run it from a command line standpoint. So put it this way: if I want to run this from a command line, I would have to, for example, see how I have my virtual environment. Well, I mean, maybe you don't know, but this is my virtual environment. So it activated my virtual environment. Then ultimately, this is where PBI, what is it? PBIX refresher.exe. Then of course this file and all of that would actually run. But if I want to not run it this way, right? Like what you're saying, you want to, let's say, have a Python file where we just run the Python file, and that would run, be able to run that piece. The way we would do that piece would be, let's see, the way that would be handled would be, I'm just trying to remember. I've done this before in one of my other projects. So what we would end up doing here would be something like import OS. We would end up doing let's see, literally would be OS system. So let's say for command, the command here is going to be PBIX refresher make sure that's the right command here. PBIX refresher.exe. Then it would be the container report.pbix, and then it would be no publish, right? So then in here under system, OS system, I would end up doing CMD /C, and then let's do something like 0 format CMD. Oops, damn it. Let me think. And that's it. I want to say this should be it. Let's see. Also know Do you know how to make it? So we run this at Python. Also, I know I didn't even need blah blah blah. Okay. Yes, you can continue. I believe we're on the right path. Okay. So once I have this, what I'm gonna do now is let's run Python run refresher. Let's see if this works. So I'm running it. There it goes. It is running. Starting Power BI. Boom, it's starting. There it goes. And it should refresh this file. Now, I think, I'm trying to think if I still have connection to the right database here or not. I don't remember, but nevertheless, it still should try, right? So at least it done, so far it's done what it's supposed to do. Open up Power BI. It should be, there it goes, refreshing. Yep, it did work. And then once it finishes, it should close out of it. Saving. There you go. Yep. So that should do it. This right here should do it to in order to run it inside Python. It's literally just providing this information here and then running it to the OS system. And that would do it. If you want to keep it like Python, right, where Python is running it, that would be the way to do it. Is this ultimately what you were seeking to do? Yeah, no. I mean, that's really what it is, right? It's like any other process. So just put it inside, run it like a normal process, and you're good to go. So hopefully this helped you out and solved, this issue that you had. Now you can just keep it all in Python and run it through Python from beginning to end. So here's the thing: you could do this with anything, right? Any other commands that you're running. Like I use AWS command line interface. You can run it this way as well too. So really, you could run in any of that through this method. It should be good. Exactly what I was trying to do. Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, I'm glad that I was able to help you out. And again, thanks for following, man. Thanks for following. Be on the lookout for more videos. I should have one coming out Sunday. Related to downloading file from SharePoint, uploading AWS S3 bucket, and then probably toward the end of the month is when I'll be doing. I'm not sure what I'm going to give away yet. It may be a keyboard. I'm not sure. Again, I have a lot of items, so I'll be sending out a message and kind of a video over that. So if it is something that hey you need, maybe you need a keyboard or something. I don't know, but if you do. I'll give you some instructions of what to do if you want to kind of like to sign up for that that raffle, and then of course wherever gets it, I'll mail them that item. So, in fact, I was trying to rebuild the whole background code from the PBX refresher. Oh man, yeah, that's a lot of work. You're trying to go that route. I have looked at that code as well. So a lot of it makes sense on what it's doing. There's stuff though that Microsoft could have done a little bit better. I think with the whole Power BI interface to make it easier to refresh. I don't know why they didn't, but it just kind of sucks. Like they easily could have made have a mechanism when it comes to refreshing without even having to go through the process of downloading. Again, PBIX refresher or any of that. I don't know why they didn't put that feature in the Power BI desktop, but either way, I mean, Power BI X refresher works for that, so it gets the job done. Well, I'm glad that this helped you out, man. And again, that's kind of what we do every Friday. I've been doing, this is my what, seventh Friday streaming now. Again, my whole series Drinking with Lou. I may have I buy like either tequila or bourbon or whiskey. That's my drink of choice. I taste it, kind of give me my feedback, what I drink, what I like. But I also, then after that, we just drink. Then we do code, right? We do this kind of stuff. We try to figure out problems, solve solutions. There've been a few times where people come up and they, in the live stream, they ask for some help with something, and we try to solve that issue like as I stream. So that's kind of the whole purpose of this, and I'm glad that it helped you out. And again, so if you ever have any issues or questions in the future related to any, let's say related to Python, for example, keep in mind I'm streaming on Friday nights, so you're more than welcome to join and leave a comment, and we'll try to figure it out. Right? Try to get try to solve the problem. That's kind of what we do every Fridays. So glad I was able to help you out, and thanks for the follow as well. All right, what time is it? It's already 11:42. So I'm going on almost 3 hours of streaming, so a little bit past time than normal, but that's fine. Had a good time, man. I'm glad we were able to solve some problems today and do all of that. So, man, I think it was a good day. It's always good to solve problems. Put it that way. Whatever I could do to help out, you know, um, it feels good in a way to kind of help out whichever way I can. All right, guys. So I think that's about it, man. I'm gonna call it a night. Again, thanks for jumping on my stream. Again, I'm on every Friday. Next Friday, I'm actually gonna be on remote. So I'm gonna be at Top Golf. And I'm gonna be on, and you know, still gonna be talking tech, having some drinks and so on. But I'm gonna be in Top Golf doing it. So again, thanks for watching, man. Thanks for following. Um, we'll be on again every Friday. That's the plan. We're gonna try to solve problems, talk tech, do programming stuff, and have some drinks. So that's kind of what we do here every Friday. If you have any issues that you need help with, just join the live stream and leave a comment, and we'll try to do what we can. And again, thanks for watching, and we'll be on next week.